Frey they turn.
Hello everyone and welcome once again to the Fanatec arena, which has made a 500-kilometre journey from round one in Monza to the centre of the paddock here in Paul Ricard with its 30 Fanatec simulators for round two of the Fanatec Esports GT Pro Series. And real-world teams points will be awarded for a sim race just hours before those same drivers jump into their real cars and compete for 6 hours around this circuit Paul Ricard. But before we get into today's action, let's take a look back at what happened at round one in Monza.
The opening round of the championship took place at Monza, and it couldn't have been a more competitive qualifying session, with Daniel Junqueira and Arthur Rougier setting identical times to the thousandth of a second. It was Junqueira who set the time earlier. He started from pole, but was beaten away by Rougier, who led the opening laps, as Mateo Cairoli was a driver trying to work his way up from 14th. There was a good fight for third raging on, and Matt Campbell was on his toes as well in the Porsche, 7th as he attacked Kelvin van der Linde down towards the first of the chicanes. Through on the inside went the Porsche, van der Linde in the Audi, down 1 place. The drivers in the Fanatec arena are a study of concentration. Ben Barnachod was down in 14th. He'd been delayed early on in the McLaren, and he was doing his best to fight back. So too Nicholas Nielsen. He was on his toes, scrapping hard as the race went on. And he was there or thereabouts in the top 6 for the duration, as Junqueira continued to lead, with Rougier filling his mirrors. Ryuichiro Tomita was another star. He started 13th, he finished 4th, and he won the Silver Cup. He had a really good debut in the championship, and he was busy scrapping as he came out of the Rougier chicane. Nicholas Nielsen, though, was even better, and the Ferrari wriggled by to take 3rd overall. Tomita heading for a class win in 4th, but he didn't give up without a fight. The two of them brushing as they got to the 2nd chicane. Kelvin van der Linde was still hard at work, although he dropped back into 7th place. He wasn't giving up. He was doing his level best to get back onto terms with Matt Campbell, but also keep at bay the traffic. Up front, it was Rougier who'd managed to get himself back into the race lead after trading places with Junqueira. And Arthur Rougier then, in the Lamborghini for the Emil Frey racing team, came through victorious to win the first round of the Fanatec GT Esports Pro Series. It was a great drive by Rougier, winning by over 3 seconds from Daniel Junqueira, with 3rd going the way of Nicholas Nielsen, and a class win, the Silver Cup honours to Ryuichiro Tomita. All smiles from Tomita, and a very happy outright race winner. Arthur Rougier taking the top step of the podium, and a big smile at the end of the first round of the championship.
It was an exceptional weekend, both in the real and in the virtual world, and we would expect the same here from the 6-hour race and also a sim race here at Paul Ricard. Now, Valkenhorst are getting ready for the real world race, but inside, David Pittard is also getting ready for the virtual one, and he got his wheel. Remarkably, BMW are such strong supporters of sim racing that this wheel not only fits on their M4 GT3 real car, but also on the Podium Series sim rigs. So who better to ask for a virtual and real world lap at this Paul Ricard circuit than Works driver David Pittard. He just needs this. Before we get into the lap comparison, David Pittard, just how cool is this partnership between Fanatec and BMW?
Yeah, I don't think any other manufacturer can offer a real life wheel that's used in their latest higher spec GT car that you can use on your sim as well.
It's absolutely amazing and a beautiful piece of kit, and you'll be able to buy one for yourself at home. Right, let's get into this lap then. And where are we looking to brake in the first corner? Because it's not a very long pit straight.
No, looking to the 100-meter marker, you'll see that in both videos either side. It's great to have the reference points in the sim that translate to real life. Down 2 gears, nail the curb on the inside, but really set yourself up to have a better exit out of turn 2 as possible, as it's a long run down to turn 3.
Looks like negative camber through that turn 2, trying to encourage the car wide.
Everything's happening there. You're going over a crest, it really keeps you on your toes. Coming into the second complex now, nail the curb even more on the inside, and again, position yourself well for turn 5 to then get the exit out of turn 5, use all the road on the way in, and then super important exit onto the Mistral straight.
Incredible, even though the track is flat, how much curb you're taking.
Yeah, the racing line is really not dictated by the white line at Paul Ricard. It's one of the fun things as a racing driver. You love to nail curbs, and yeah, at Paul Ricard, you take no prisoners.
Unlike the F1 track, no chicane for the GT cars, a hugely long straight. What kind of top speed are you getting by the end of this lap?
We're just under 280, so 277 to be exact.
All right, coming into the fastest corner of the lap.
So yeah, this is where we take a deep breath, brake at 60 metres, down 1 gear, send it in over the curb, hope it doesn't unsettle you too much, use all of the road, back on the track for the floppies, into the next complex of corners. A very long corner here at T11, be committed on the way in, patient on the middle, and then precise on the way out.
So much rotation needed in the car to get these kind of unusual racing lines.
You need a bit of everything. You need entry stability, you need rotation, you need traction. It's a real test of car, man and machine.
Last couple of corners then, and again, a very tricky one to end the lap.
Yes, if you put together a good lap up till this point, you cannot relax at any point now. You've got to nail your positioning, especially out of this final corner, because it's a big drag race to the line now to complete the lap.
And the 2 laps within 0.2 of a second of each other, again displaying the quality of Assetto Corsa Competizione. Just how real does it feel for you?
Having done free practice 1 this morning at Paul Ricard in real life, and I've been testing all week, I feel like I've done 2 or 3 practice sessions already when I hit the track for the first time.
David, thank you very much. You can head back to your sim and good luck in the race.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, therefore, live here into the arena. We have our drivers all in their rigs, and we have a little collection of fans as well. Come along with me to the back where we're going to chat to the pole man, if he'll have a chat with us, because there is a free practice session going on right this second, and he might not want to talk. Let's try. Kelvin van der Linde, congratulations, pole position.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. It was quite a surprise, actually. After my performance in Monza, I was not too happy, so I made sure to put in a couple more hours this time.
And a spin in the real world session, but not on this one.
Yeah, maybe I should have done a couple more laps on the simulator if you look at the real qualifying. But yeah, no, in the end, I'm really happy with P1. Hopefully we can get a nice start to the weekend. It's just 1 hour, a bit more than an hour before the real race, so it's quite a cool dynamic, and yeah, let's see how we go.
Preparation for the sim, you've got a sim at home. It's obviously not exactly the same kind of rig, but does it give you the opportunity to get a setup? Because you only get 2 hours here, don't you?
Yeah, but to be honest with you, the quality of the Fanatec wheelbase and the pedals have been really good. So coming here hasn't been too difficult to adjust. I found it actually that I was quicker on this simulator than at home. So maybe I need to invest and get the exact same setup for home.
Shout out to Fanatec there. It's going to be a very, very tight race. For you, it's all about flat out, because I know the Mercedes are going to struggle a little bit with fuel, aren't they?
Yeah, let's see. Typically, the Audi's very good on the long runs. I know Danny has some success balance from last time, so maybe he has a bit more tire dig. But let's see. I'm going to go flat out. It's all or nothing today.
And how much preparation and input do you get from Team WRT?
They've been really professional about it. We have all our engineers here. We have SDL Esports here doing the setups for us. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes, and I'm just jumping in the end and doing the driving bit, but they really put a big effort, as they do in real life.
Is this feeding back to your team then, this Teletubby antennae?
No, it's not, but I'm on Discord, so I have a live team radio, so they're doing all the strategy calls and stuff and keeping me on my toes with track limits, because that's going to be quite a big topic, I think, in the race. We only have 4 track limits, so keep an eye on that at the end of the race. I think It could be a couple of penalties.
Thank you very much. I see we're about to get ready, so have a good race. As you can see, the setup is choice of preference is socks today for Kelvin van der Linde. There's a few drivers out there with racing boots, but most people are with socks on, I believe. So we've just got a couple of moments before we go into our live. Reminder, it's a 1 hour race. We have a single pit stop. They don't really have to do anything in the pits other than check in and put 1 single litre of fuel. probably not going to be changing tyres today, but maybe the Mercedes will choose to do something different, knowing they're a little tight on a 1 hour fuel for the whole of the race. Let's head over to the real world commentator and the man that lends his voice to our virtual competition, David Addison.
Ben, thanks very much. We are almost set then to go racing. This second round of the new Fanatec Esports GT Pro Series here at Paul Ricard. We've been through qualifying, and the grid, therefore, is sorted with Kelvin van der Linde and Nico Varoni lining up at the front, ahead of Daniel Juncadella and Ben Barnachod on the second row of the grid. Philip Ellis and Mateo Cairoli share row 3, ahead of Marvin Dienst and Nicholas Nielsen, with Nikolai Sheargaard and then Matt Campbell on the 5th row. Arthur Rougier, a long way back, but he's got these 30 kilos of weight on board the car. 12th on the grid is where you find the silver winner from Monza, Rougier and Tomita, ahead of Tom Audrey, Alex Fontana and Ezekiel Companc to round out the top 15. Let's just have a stroll up the grid. It's Audi on pole, Kelvin van der Linde, and then newcomer Nicola Varoni alongside in the Ferrari. 88, Daniel Juncadella, front row at Monza, second row here. Ben Barnachod qualifying really well in the McLaren, run by the Jota team. On the third row, 57 there, Philip Ellis, one to watch. Matteo Cairoli in the Porsche lining up with him on that third row of the grid, ahead of Marvin Dienst, who was impressive, in fact, in the real world qualifying this morning, and he's got Nicholas Nielsen, impressive in the virtual race at Monza, alongside. Then we get to another of the newcomers, Nikolai Sheargaard, who is as good in modern GT as he is in historic Daytona Coupe Cobras. He for Garage 59 comes next, and then it's Matt Campbell, number 22, there, dropping down onto the ground in the GPX Porsche next up. Behind him is the Monza winner, Arthur Rougier then. He's got 30 kilos of weight in the car. Next on the grid is going to be Rougier Tomita, also with 30 kilos, as the silver winner from Monza. Tom Audrey is 87 Mercedes, and then number 14, Alex Fontana, in the next of the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghinis. The Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes of Ezekiel Perez Companc comes next, with Christopher Mies taking over number 66 Audi for round 2, the Attempto racing car. Then Kiko Galbiati's Lamborghini behind David Pittard, who is next on the grid in 34 BMW there. Galbiati number 16 on the inside of the road. The next row, 25 Christopher Haase, another newcomer to this championship. And next up, 63 Mirko Bortolotti, a long way back on the grid with work to do. Matt Hofer drives number 99 alongside number 40 of Yannick Mettler, and the back row, another newcomer, Gabriele Piani, taking over the number 5 Haupt entry. And Vincent Abril in number 4 Haupt Racing Mercedes will complete the grid. That is how we look then. The time for the game set at 3 minutes past 9. It's 1 hour, mandatory pit stop, and this promises to be absolutely fascinating. The car's just a tenth quicker in the virtual qualifying than the real world qualifying session that we had on track earlier on in the day, and with the weight to factor in this time, take a coin, flick it, see where it lands in terms of picking a winner, because this Ben Constanduros is wide open.
And they've got an extra challenge to deal with, which is going into the night. We will see the night fall and that transition from day to night beautifully replicated on Assetto Corsa Competizione. The lights are on already on the cars. Just how much distraction that will be for the drivers, I'm not sure. It's why we're seeing that kind of shiny glisten on the tarmac. It's not wet, as we'd like to assume in the real world, but it is going to be dark by the end of this encounter.
Now around here, and I know you touched on this in the build-up, some brands are going to struggle for fuel more than others.
Yeah, exactly. Mercedes on a map 1, so the most fuel-hungry and fastest map, will probably not be able to run flat out for the whole hour's race. Two options: you either do a little bit of lift and coast at the end of this very, very long straight, or you take a little bit longer in the pits and get a couple of litres of fuel into the car. So two different strategies there. Many of the other competitors will not have that issue, but I think the Mercedes will struggle. And that, some of the other brands will be up to 5-6 kilometres an hour faster at the end of the straight, but then struggle through the more mid-speed corners. So it's an interesting grid. I mean, look at the different marks across our grid. They're all scattered everywhere.
And names as well. I mean, people like Vincent Abril, dare one say, Mirko Bortolotti as well. Because you get so used to seeing them in the real world, being at the front, you anticipate it's going to be the same here. But you made the point last year in the burgeoning esports scene that SRO was involved in. It is a different art. It's a different feel completely from being in a real world race car with it moving around underneath you compared to just sitting out there on a rig.
I'm in the seat is what they always talk about in real world racing, and the feel of how the back end moves around, something you really need here. You need the rotation of the car to get around some of these longer corners. They won't feel that in these static rigs that we have here. You'll feel it through the steering wheel. You won't feel it through your bum. Interestingly, some of these guys might have a different setup at home where maybe they do have a little bit of movement. They might not have the exact setup, as we heard from Kelvin van der Linde, that we have in this arena. It might suit them better. It might suit them worse, like Kelvin's just found out that he can go faster here than he can at home.
Yeah, whether or not if the car spins, the rear screen pops out like he did for him in the real world qualifying session. Hopefully we won't find out, because Kelvin van der Linde, starting in the pound seats here on pole position, will not want to be making a mistake, but an impressive qualifying effort for the man alongside him, isn't it? Because coming new into the real world championship for Rinaldi Racing, new into the Esports championship, is Nikolai Baroni. And don't forget that the teams will score points. Third, first, second, you get the points within the top 3, 3, 2 and 1 as you slide down the order. They are for the teams championship in the real world. So we're not talking about a drivers competition as such, although their results are fascinating, but it's the top 3 teams that will benefit in the real world teams championship. So hold on to your virtual hats. We are about to go racing as the cars at now 6 minutes past 9 at a virtual Paul Ricard work their way through Tours up towards Virage du Pont, and then we're going to go racing. Pole position is on the inside for that first left-hander before you have to swing through the right out of the chicane, and then that short straight down towards Saint-Baume. Round 2 of the Fanatec Esports GT Pro Series then is about to get underway. The grid is formed. Kelvin van der Linde shares row 1 with Nico Varoni. The second row, Daniel Junqueira with 15 kilos of weight, and Ben Barnachod, who's on his toes as we go racing. The lights go green, and Ben Barnachod makes a good start, but already as they dive down towards turn 1, there are penalties being applied within the game. There's contact in midfield as well, and one off the road. He's one of the Lamborghini. Junqueira gets sideways. Does he hang on to it? He doesn't. He goes around. And Daniel Junqueira then he's going to drop to the back of the pack as Ben Barnachod makes the move against Kelvin van der Linde. Down now towards turn 3. It is Audi leading McLaren, but already drive-through penalties are being offered up. The game has gone into overdrive, Ben.
Yeah, unfortunately they weren't lined up correctly on the grid. The game is really harsh on if you're not in your particular grid spot, and what is that, over half a dozen drivers already falling foul, and it was Arthur Rougier who missed the first corner, didn't get back on for the third corner. I think he missed the whole of the first complex, the game deciding he hasn't cut the track as such, but he is down in 17th spot.
So Matt Campbell, Ryuichiro Tomita, Yannick Meckler, Christopher Mies, Kiko Gagliardi, Mirko Bortolotti, Vincent Abril, all being offered drive-through penalties already because of their start. We've got real-world stewards, a real-world race director as well, but some of these penalties coming from within the game, except they've all now disappeared, and off the road in the background, is that Bortolotti? Yes, it is. He's had a monster of a moment, ploughing off up against the barriers there. So we've got Nikolai Sheargaard way back as well, but off the road was Bortolotti. That brings out a yellow flag on the Mistral straight. However, van der Linde is in the lead of the race. Nicholas Nielsen there in number 51 Ferrari is on his toes trying to get up the order. It's been a busy first lap.
I have a feeling that race control may have cleared all of those drive-through penalties. To me, actually, the grid looked pretty good. It looked better than we would normally see on a rolling start for most real-world races. And it is possible that race control have gone, actually, do you know what? The game has been too harsh here. Yeah. We'll clear those and get back to racing, but that's a shame. It looks like we've lost 2 cars, Nikolai Sheargaard and Mirko Bortolotti, both in pits, getting repaired. 2 separate incidents, I think?
Yes, it looked like it. I think Nikolai Sheargaard, because he was a long way up the grid, relatively speaking, I think his was at the first corner. Mirko Bortolotti's dramas was on the Mistral straight on that opening lap. Right, 1 in the book. Van der Linde leads. Ben Barnachod second, having a much better run here than he did at Monza. Third is Mateo Cairoli. So you've got Audi, McLaren, Porsche, Ferrari fourth. Nicola Varoni ahead of then Matt Campbell, 5th. Nicholas Nielsen is in 6th. Here's the battle with 7th then Philip Ellis, 8th Marvin Deans, 9th Ryuichiro Tomita, and Thomas Drouet in 10th spot.
Huge Ferrari presence here this weekend. Ferrari Driver Academy here to help out the Ferrari drivers as we watch Nicholas Nielsen, a couple of them in the far right-hand corner there, the likes of Brendan Lee, Formula 1 Esports World Champion twice over, and Pomzilla. Tonitsa is also here, previous winner just, what was it, a few days ago, 1 week ago?
Just a week ago, yeah. In the Europe Sprint series that we now have, because there are regional esports sprint and endurance championships as well as our pro series. So esports, terribly busy environment these days, but look at this for a busy environment. Ryuichiro Tomita is in the middle of it, 3 wide up the Mistral straight. Great fight going on as there Kiko Galbiati tries to fend off Alex Fontana, who comes up to the outside then. Look in the Lamborghini, and we've had a change for second. Mateo Cairoli is ahead of Ben Barnachod, so Porsche goes ahead of McLaren now.
Yeah, great start from Ben Barnachod, really, really quick, and the McLaren obviously getting good torque. He was in the right gear to be able to overhaul going into the first corner, but it was 3 wide into the first corner, 3 wide into the fourth corner, and he's kept the McLaren clean. But now it's about making sure the cars will last both tyres and fuel to the end of the race, and I'm sure the Ferraris will have worked not on a one-lap pace, but on a full stint pace. That's crucial.
So there is Ben Barnachod, hard at work. Study of concentration as he now tries to work out how to get back onto terms with Mateo Cairoli, but Kelvin van der Linde is the man in charge right now. It's a modest gap, but it's a gap nonetheless. Ben Barnachod there then in 3rd place, and we're about to get a change for 4th, aren't we? Matt Campbell goes through, so the Porsche's in the ascendancy here. 1 up to 2nd and 1 up to 4th place. The GPX Racing entry goes 4th.
Love that livery as well. Beautifully recreated in this platform. They've all been tweaked since we last saw them in Monza as well to make sure they are absolutely spot on. It was a bit of a last-minute scramble, both for the teams in the real-world paddock and in the virtual world, to get those liveries into the game before we went racing in Monza on the Saturday evening. Now they look absolutely sweet, and the Jota car especially was a last-minute addition. And now looks absolutely on the money. It's a shame we don't have the full Martini livery sponsorship on that car, which obviously is effectively illegal, I think, in France, and that's why we lose the red bit and we just stick with the dark and light blue, as Williams did back in the day.
Now there is a drive-through being applied for Gabriele Piana, so welcome to Esports, Gabriele. Have a drive-through. We'll try and get to the bottom of what that one is for. Danny Juncadeo we've lost as well, because he's pitted after the damage sustained in that turn 1 incident. You're riding on board with Ryuichiro Tomita. He is currently, now 7th, and hunting down Nicholas Nielsen. There's a car off to the left.
That was Ben Barnachod, who'd spun, I think, well off the road. He's reading his 3rd position right now, but there's certainly been an issue for Barnachod, and I think when we get to the end of the lap, he will move way down the order. Hopefully he doesn't have to reset the pits. Not sure he hit anything. He was way away from the barrier there. The barrier is a country mile away from the track, but he's lost a lot of time, and that will be confirmed when we end this lap.
And drive through for Christopher Mies as well. Now the stewards that are over our shoulders are busy conferring on issues, but Mies has been offered a drive through, Piana given a drive through as well, and that means at the end of the lap Kelvin van der Linde is still clear in the lead. Matteo Cairoli is going to be in 2nd place, and then for 3rd in this new order, Nico Varoni ahead of Matt Campbell 4th, Nicholas Nielsen is 5th, 6th is Tomita, 7th Phil Ellis, 8th Marvin Dienst, 9th Thomas Drouet, 10th now is Alex Fontana.
Ferraris look really, really good down the Mistral straight. They're very, very fast in comparison to Porsche, but this track, such a track of 2 or even 3 halves, where these slow to medium speed corners favour other cars than the ones that can go absolutely flat out down that huge long straight. So we're seeing different performances. The problem is the easiest place to overtake is the Mistral straight, not through the fiddly stuff.
And of course, the real-world balance of performance and tyre degradation is all brought into this platform as well, so it's as realistic as you can get. And that's why the qualifying times are within a tenth of what happened in the real world. More drive-throughs now. Vincent Abril being given a drive-through penalty. So you can see on that timing tower, drive-through penalties being applied. Ryuichiro Tomita is hard at work in the meantime, running in 6th place then. And a quick blink, looks up and studying what's going on in his world right now, with a little bit of marker tape there on the wheel, so he knows when he's absolutely dead north, and he's got to go defensive, because all over him like a rash is Phil Ellis. Looking at the Mercedes, who makes a dive on the inside line coming into senior. This is brave. He gets a squeeze up the inside, does Ellis. Just about bounces off the Audi, side by side now up towards Bosse. Job done, good pass.
Very, very impressive pass there, and Tomita then loses a position both in the overall, but also in the silver class that he won last time out. Verone is part of that silver class. You can see it on the left-hand side, the silver, and then the pro, and we've got a spinner.
That's Ellis, so he was battling with Tomita. Now, whether there was a rub, it was hard to see, but either way, Philip Ellis, the British-based driver, has gone around, so sad to say he'll drop down the order. Again, part of this, we saw it at Monza, if you survive, you're going to finish pretty well, aren't you?
Yeah, we've actually got 3 cars in the pits, and Danny Juncadella, after 1 lap, is the 3rd of those drivers. So we've lost 2 very big names in Bortolotti and Juncadella, and I don't think either of them are going to go back out onto circuit by the looks of things. So that's a shame, down to 21 cars, and Barnachod is 21st and last.
But still going, which is the point you were hinting at a little while ago, as Tomita has a drama and ends up briefly off the road there. Right, so up front, Kelvin van der Linde leading the way. Mateo Cairoli runs in second spot, Nikolai Varoni third, and then behind in the race order, it's Campbell fourth, Nielsen is fifth, and Tomita sixth at the moment.
So the race still continues. I think we've just lost a connection to the server quickly, but that will be reset and we'll get images back on so we can see from inside the cockpit. This is the view that the drivers get. This is a new view that we've never seen before. And you can see lots and lots of different information that they get. The temperature of the tyres, there's those green stripes. The inside is the brake temperature. Everything looking perfect for Tomita as he gets to the end of the Mistral Straight right now. But he is looking around because I believe there might be some kind of warnings on their screen to say that perhaps the race server has disconnected.
Yes, because there's an element of confusion from the drivers as to where's the car I'm meant to be battling with, because all of a sudden they're just being able to do qualifying laps, aren't they? And it can't impose the other cars against them for the moment. Kelvin van der Linde, though, had a clear view ahead of him anyway, so life hasn't changed much for Kelvin van der Linde. He leads, and it was about a second and a half he was up the road from Mateo Cairoli. Ben Barnachod is the sad story out of all of this, having had a good run early on, being off the road and trying to fight his way back into the mix. Now, there you can see the drivers are starting to see other cars coming back onto the circuit ahead of them. So David Pittard, that is, who is being chased by Yannick Mettler right now as the cars accelerate up towards the completion of the lap. But Kelvin van der Linde doing a very good job indeed in being able to convert pole position into the lead of the race right from the get-go.
These drivers that had drive-through penalties will need to take them within 3 laps, so expect Vincent Abril to come into the pit soon. He'll need to, otherwise he will get an automatic disqualification, which will be an absolute disaster for him. I think also Christopher Mies may have got himself a drive-through by looking at that screen there.
Yes, he had earlier, yes, you're right.
That was earlier,
Yep.
Okay. So we're on board here with Hoffer. Oh, what was that in the middle of the road? Because they're kind of getting connection and disconnection, so a little tricky for these drivers to know exactly what's going on, but at least they can just keep their head down and bang in the laps. And Hofer is saying he's in 10th position, which is about where he was when we had the disconnect right now.
So van der Linde, Cairoli, Varoni, Campbell, Nielsen, Tomita, Ellis, Dienst, Drouet, Fontana is the top 10 right now. And for Kelvin van der Linde, the margin trying to extend as the cars then turn their way through to the end of the next lap of the race. Now, just looking a little bit further down, Arthur Rougier, only 12. How much of that do you put down to it being Lamborghini and Paul Ricard as a combination? How much is the weight,
and the
30
weight.
kilos, affecting him?
Yeah, absolutely. The weight will affect not only the car, but also the way that the tyres heat up. This platform is so sensitive to the amount of pressure and temperature put through those tyres. If you don't get those setups absolutely bang on, you overheat the tyres, you don't get the grip, and the time just bleeds away. So look how cold the brakes get going into senior. Now he stamps on the brakes, and they do get to working temperature, but actually I think this car needs a little bit more blanking because it goes back to blue almost straight away, and he won't be getting that initial bite of temperature into where he really, really needs it. Much, much nicer temperature riding here on board. This looks like Kelvin van der Linde.
It is interesting. He was down in first gear going through Virage du Pont. So we've been looking in real world pictures earlier on in the day at how big a stop it is. And we know it's a tight turn, but having to go to first gear, not so much to make the corner, but to get the drag out of the corner onto this long, fast straight. So you need to have the revs up. But look at this. Study of concentration, yes, but perfect lines going through the first chicane there.
The other thing it might do is also, when you bang it into first gear, it might push the nose a little further forward to allow a little bit more rotation because it's such a tight turn. So maybe that's why, perhaps something you don't do in the real world, but you do here in the virtual world. Most of it, though, is so realistic. And actually, I'm loving these views because it's allowing us to look over the shoulder of the driver, see how much the traction control is banging on and off. He turns, actually, the traction control off now. It goes yellow. That's top left-hand corner on the dashboard. He turns it off to use the slip of the car to turn through those last 2 corners before getting onto the straight. Map 1 is the next number you can see, and then ABS 3 on the right-hand side, so not really relying on ABS too much to get the car stopped.
And of course, while we've got this little glitch with the server, it's also affected the timing because that hasn't updated for a lap or so either. But it will all start to shake through in the fullness of time. But what you have now is this fabulous view on board with Kelvin van der Linde. It's fascinating to see so many things in this, not only, as you say, Ben, looking over the driver's shoulder and what they're doing in terms of the data in the car, but also what the driver is seeing, and also how realistic it is trackside as you ride on board there with the drivers making their way up now through Beausset, down through Village here and on towards Tours, that next sequence of corners up towards the end of the lap. So third gear for this section of circuit, grab fourth and then brake hard. This is a corner that tightens into Virage Dupont, bang, hard on the brakes, down to first gear, crank it right and then boom out the other side.
Now, this is not good news for Kelvin van der Linde, but they will be resetting the server and therefore we will go a restart. So we're going to do a red flag as per we've seen in other endurance sim races, and then we will go for a new start of this race. Bad news for Kelvin van der Linde because it was a beautifully led and absolutely perfect run up to this point. But he now pulls off to the side of the track and he will have to replicate that once over. I don't know if we're going to do a full race start from the very beginning, so a full hour, or whether we will just do a 45-minute race. Nobody actually took any pit stops as yet. And as you can see on his screen, the reason for it, of course, is the race control are unable to see anything that's happening on the track, and therefore any incidents that happen are being unregulated. So it's not just our pictures that we are missing, we're also missing all the kind of the regulation that we need. So the driver's a little confused right now, but we will get that server reset, everyone connected both to us and to each other. And that'll give someone like Bortolotti and Juncadella the chance to redeem themselves after one lap of racing before.
Yeah, if it's a complete restart, yes, you're absolutely right, it will, assuming they're still here and haven't gone. But something new. I've had red flags in esports because of accidents and the race director being benevolent and saying, okay, we'll give you another chance here because we don't want to spoil your fun, but not for something like this. So we will await more news as to a restart, but red flag in a virtual race, but this is for a very different reason. And we were jokingly saying last year in esports terms about the Racing Driver's Book of Excuses, how that's expanded with things like internet disconnecting rather than, spinning off or gearbox problem. Here's something else you can factor in there.
There are the ability to actually have mechanical retirements within Assetto Corsa Competizione. You can have suspension issues, punctures, things like that, especially if you're overly aggressive off tracks and bouncing over grass and things like that. But add to that hardware issues or software issues on your particular game, and that happens quite a lot when you're home. Of course, here in the arena, we make sure that everything is absolutely as reliable as possible so that we don't have any technical issues with the hardware in which the guys are sitting in, and we've got representatives from Fanatec here to make sure that doesn't happen. But at home, very much so. We've seen even the likes of Max Verstappen famously losing his brake pedal just at the very end of a 24-hour race and losing the victory for that. This happens quite a lot in esports, and it's not necessarily just the drivers that have issues, but it's also, of course, the server that can have issues too. So we have seen this before, and it's not uncommon. So we're just going to do a reset, and we'll get racing back underway again.
45 minutes, I'm hearing, but the same pit window, 25 to 35, just for the ease. It's not a driver change, so you'll still have to do the stop, but the window remains the same, but it's going to be a 45-minute race because there is the need for everything to stay on time, not only our race, but the next race on track, which also has, of course, to fit to a live stream as well, and the drivers themselves have to go and prepare for a mere 6 hours of competition later on in the evening.
Now, the only question will be, I don't think they'll be able to input the grid in which we have stopped the race, as you would in the real world. A red flag, you would, well, I suppose, a race suspended is the wording, isn't it? Then you would use the grid in which the race was stopped. I don't know whether that would be possible within the platform of this game, and therefore we might go back to the original grid that was set before. But the guys will be working furiously to get everything set up so we can go racing as soon as possible.
And as predicted, it was a real scrum, wasn't it, through the first couple of corners, which gave plenty of drama and did for the chances of a few drivers. So they do, as Ben has been making the point, get another chance.
Well, I can see out of our commentary box window, kind of, that there is nobody in Bortolotti's seat. So if he was going to restart, and potentially has the possibility to do so, as you mentioned, he may not well be here any longer, which is a bit of a shame. So he'll miss out on that opportunity. And therefore his team will also miss out on the chance for points, because we have to remember, we keep talking about the drivers, but actually this is a team's race, isn't it? At any point they can swap out one driver and put a new driver in.
And that's what we've had, a handful of newcomers for this weekend. Yeah, you made the point when we got to that red flag. Kelvin van der Linde will be very frustrated. Boy, will he ever. He had that advantage, and now we have this stoppage while everything is reset, and then we'll be good to go once more.
Other thing this is going to help is the Mercedes. Presumably they will have the ability to choose their fuel load going into the race restart, and therefore they won't have that struggle of getting to the end of the race on a tank that isn't quite there for the full race distance. So Mercedes can then put it onto map 1 and push hard. I'm assuming that. Nothing's particularly confirmed as yet, because everything's just being sorted and reset. But that might be a positive thing. And we had Mercedes up there in the top 10 positions. There were 4 or 5 of them, I think, before we went to the red flag conditions. Let's see what happens to Ben Barnachod as well. 21st position, great start from the second row of the grid, and then had a spin at Senior. Was that his fault? Was there contact? Unfortunately, we were in the wrong part of the track to be able to see. I will also assume that the drive-through penalties that were awarded won't be able to roll on either, although race control could manually input those back into the game. So
I suppose that depends again whether we are suspending or completely restarting.
Yeah, exactly.
If I say this really loudly in the direction of one of our stewards, we might get an answer. But as soon as possible, we will be back in business, and we'll try again. 45 minutes. It's going to make it a real harem-scarum battle.
And don't forget that we have this Pro Series here on site at many of the Endurance Cup, well, in fact, all of the Endurance Cup races for the GT World Challenge. But we also have all of these Pro Sim Driver races, which you were part of last weekend for the European Series. We've got an Asia Series running, and we've got America's Series, both in endurance and in sprint. So there is 6, 3, and even a 24-hour race coming up in the second weekend of August. But plenty of esports action for you guys to feast your eyes on. And it's amazing to see the grids that have formed, not just from experts within the Assetto Corsa platform, but people from other platforms at the very best of those platforms moving across into Assetto Corsa. The likes of the people that we have here right now, David Tonitza, for instance, who is in our crowd, and David winning on Assetto Corsa, having been an F1 esports champion previously.
So everybody working hard here to make sure that we are good to go as soon as.
Bortolotti back in his seat.
Excellent. He's had the call.
Now he's doing a half race suit thing. You know, where most race suits are worn around the kind of the waist area, because it's a hot day here at Paul Ricard. It's about 25 degrees. Okay. But it means you're sitting on the rest of your seat, your suit. It can't be very comfortable for an hour.
Wouldn't have thought so.
No,
but it looks cool.
If you put it up full, then it's going to get too hot. So you can't go fully off, because then you're in your underwear, and that's kind of weird too.
Not pretty sight in some cases, you could argue.
Like the commentary box earlier.
Precisely. I did ask the question last year in the context of 1 or 2 esports drivers of what do you wear when you're doing all of this, and the answer was, well, normally t-shirt, shorts, sometimes racing boots, racing gloves, but anti-glare spectacles.
Yep.
A bit like sunglasses, I guess, because you forget that drivers in these rigs at home or in a team's base, they've got big screens, bright screens. You're staring at them for hours on end, and that's going to hurt your eyes.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is hot work. We're in a tent here today in the centre of the paddock at Paul Ricard. As I say, 25 degrees outside. It's 23 or 4 degrees inside here, and when you are working hard with the steering wheel and pedals, as these drivers are, it is very, very hot work, and through a full hour stint they will do a workout and their heart rate will be high. There's a sim driver whose name escapes me right now, and he has a heart rate monitor on him, and his heart rate is constantly about 130, 140 beats a minute throughout the whole hour. It's
extraordinary, isn't it? This whole new world that we're learning about, and we will look forward to getting everybody back on track very shortly for this restart. So apologies for the delay, and everybody getting closer, I think, to a thumbs up.
There is that very complex of corners at Paul Ricard here, many different layout. And actually, even on this weekend's worth of racing, we have the GT3 cars using the full Mistral straight without the chicane, but then we have Super Trofeo guys using the chicane. There's also single-seaters here and touring cars all using chicane. So they have the ability simply to move the cones and use a different layout of this circuit. Many different layouts to simulate many different tracks around the world. We've seen world events using just half the layout and basically turning right at the first corner rather than left at the first corner. Such is the facility here in Le Castellet, just about half an hour away, or no, it's about an hour away from Marseille, in the Mediterranean. Many of the teams and drivers heading down to the coast to be able to find a hotel, because of course everyone's still kind of in lockdown, COVID lockdown situation here in France, and therefore not all the hotels are open, and so you have to travel quite a way to get yourself some bed and board.
Now the grid is going to be the order at the stoppage at the suspension, so it will still be Kelvin van der Linde in the lead, but it also means that Mirko Bortolotti, having rejoined, is going to be at the back. Now, is he going to be allowed to rejoin? Because he hasn't completed a lap yet, so he's effectively either 3 laps down or may not be a starter. We'll double check what the officials wish to do about that, because if you are continuing from the stoppage,
yes,
as I
exactly,
say, he's 3 laps down.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they could do an aggregated result on the platform. It would have to be done manually, and that's been done before, but it's kind of messy.
True enough.
So maybe, just maybe, Bortolotti will be stuck at the back of the grid and they'll all at least start on the same lap. It's going to be pretty feisty at the back with Barnachod, Juncadella and Bortolotti occupying the back rows of the grid.
Yeah, Ben Barnachod could be the big winner out of all of this, couldn't he? Because he is on the lead lap still. He hadn't dropped a lap.
Yeah.
He dropped places, but he had rejoined to stay on the lap. So he has a chance to make some progress once we go green yet again.
Assuming David Pittard had a few issues in that first stint of our race, the man who showed us around a lap of this circuit within 2/10 in his real world lap to his virtual lap, down in 19th position. One, if not the only, yes, the only BMW in the field for Valkenhorst, and therefore representing that brand that is, as we've said, so passionate about their sim racing, very, very successful in supporting the virtual drivers, won the British GT Championship BMW with their virtual drivers, and there's only one BMW in this field simply because that is how it's worked with the entries from their real world teams. So there are 2 all-pro lineups in the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe Championship, and because there's 2 pro lineups, they only need to enter one of those into this, and therefore the 34 car is the one that's entered, and David Pittard representing that team. If you have a pro and a silver entry, then you have to have both of those teams represented. So for the likes of Haupt, for instance, Vincent Abril represents the pro team, but Gabriel Piana represents the silver team, and that's why we've got 2 Haupt Mercedes. But it just works out that BMW have 2 pro entries. If they're the silver one, they would have 2 cars, but they've only got 1. And we've got, I think it's 7 or 8 different brands represented in this platform in the GT3 category. There's a couple of Evos, so there are 2 types of Mercedes, for instance. And then there's a whole category for GT4 as well, which of course we're not seeing here today. But if you want to get this platform, you've not downloaded Assetto Corsa Competizione before, there's tracks from the British Championship, there's tracks from the European, the Intercontinental GT, and GT4 and GT3 cars as well.
And we've had, haven't we, in the British GT Championship, that mix of hot lap qualifiers through GT4 and season entries from the real world in the GT3 class, and a good mix that produced. So we are, as I say, edging closer to the resumption of the race.
Yeah, cars are now gridded up by the looks of things, or into the server. So now it takes a little bit of time to move them all into the right grid order, which they will be doing probably manually, because whilst so much is done automatically in these platforms, sometimes if you want to do like a photo shoot where you get all the cars out on, there's a beautiful one from when we first launched this, of all the cars lined up Eau Rouge, and that obviously has to be done manually. So there's a guy on Discord saying left a bit, right a bit, reverse a bit, like they would do in the real world.
Yes, yes.
There's a fantastic video, I don't know if it's actually public, but doing the rounds somewhere of what happened after that photo shoot was finished, and they all just go absolutely mental doing donuts and crashing into each other and going back and forth up the hill, and great fun.
The Paul Ricard circuit is so, as they all are in fairness, brilliantly recreated, isn't it, within the platform. And you're looking down onto the Mistral Straight, you can see the different chicanes that operate there for different championships, and of course for corporate use and driver tuition and so forth. So what used to be this high performance test track, great to have it back as a real world race circuit as well, because it was the one we'd lost for a time.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't. Does Bernie still own the place?
Mrs. Eccleston does.
Mrs. Of course, yes. Does. But they were, he rescued it basically, and there's a beautiful hotel across the road, so it can be used for corporate use. Right now, it's being used by Pirelli to test the new 18-inch Formula 1 tyre. Okay. So actually, if your eagle eyes as you drive into the circuit, on the right-hand side, you can see the Pirelli trucks and some AlphaTauri trucks as well, presumably the next in line to do the testing, because I think they're offering testing to every single one of the Formula 1 teams.
Right.
So Mercedes were here last week, and perhaps AlphaTauri are the next one in the queue.
Yes, I think a Ferrari was here on Wednesday, doing some laps as well, from what people were telling me. Anyway, that is another use of the circuit, and again, there you see the different link roads, the cut-throughs, the different configurations of Paul Ricard that are available, all faithfully recreated right down to the little traffic cones there, blanking different sections of the track off for our use.
When I was doing the laps earlier yesterday, getting a feel for the track in these rigs, really hard to spot your apexes because everything is so flat and there's not that many references. It's quite hard to really work out which bit of track you're going. After about 5 or 6 laps, it gets into your brain. But even the first corner, I kept just running a little bit deep because it's really hard to spot the little bit of yellow, which is where your apex point is for that first corner.
So we have a look down the grid, and the drivers are set, good to go. This is the race order. And we are just over a minute away from getting things back underway then. So the race will resume, and 45 minutes. Pit window remains the same, so it's still 25 to 35. You still take on your litre of fuel, but as Ben correctly suggested, this takes some of the drama away from being a Mercedes driver, because you no longer have to worry about that map 1, that fuel deficiency that you might have had otherwise. We'll also be able to check at the very rear of the grid exactly who is there and who we've lost from the demands of part 1, and the session due to start as you see the clock tick on down in just over 45 seconds time. So we are almost there, and Kelvin van der Linde aiming now to convert pole, race lead, pole, back into the race lead.
Yeah, when you see these drivers drop down onto the ground, that's them literally logging into the session. So if they're still up on their jacks, they haven't yet clicked drive. So that's what we are waiting for every single driver to do. Once they've all done that, then they will be we will be able to get the session started. And that's simply why we have this kind of wait time, as it's called, to get everybody into the session and make sure they all have a fair chance. If they haven't clicked go now, then they've only got 5 seconds to do so. And then we can do our rolling up lap and go racing. But it does look like everybody is on the back of the field. No, the Aston Martin disappears just as I speak. And Vincent Abril also looks like he is not logged into the session. So we do lose 2 drivers. Shame for Vincent, it would have been starting 15th.
Yeah, exactly. So the cars then blast away, ready for the continuation of the race. So Abril and Sheargaard, I think you said, were the 2 that weren't there.
Yeah.
And everybody else then is good to go. So 45 minutes will be the time once they get across the line at the end of this formation lap. It's going to be, as I say, a bit harum-scarum, and it was dramatic enough when it was a 1-hour sprint, but 45 minutes is going to be hugely competitive, isn't it? But Kelvin van der Linde had shown just how good he was, what he could do, and how to hang on to that advantage.
Yeah, made a great start. Had Ben Barnachod up his tailpipes at the first start. Not there this time, though. Barnachod will have a lot of work to get through the field from 21st position. And it was the torque of the McLaren, wasn't it? And we talk about this track being really good in the first and the last sectors for cars with good torque, for cars that can pull themselves out of low to medium speed corners. And the McLaren certainly did that at the start of the race, which is regulated by the platform. So each of these drivers will be seeing a screen and will be seeing a box, and they have to stay within that box, and if they are too far forward or too far back from the box and therefore speeding, they will end up getting a penalty. We saw all those penalties being given to drivers on the last of our starts. Race control cleared them. It's a difficult one to do here because of how slow that last corner is. You can quite easily fall out of your box quite quickly.
But it is, of course, something that they all have to be aware of, or the start drivers have to be aware of, for the real-world race later on in the day. Confirmation that Emil and Sheargaard are still in the pit lane, so they are not going to take the continuation of the race. The drivers then now are looking at a 45-minute sprint. Kelvin van der Linde then up at the head of the queue as the cars turn their way once more down through the approach to Signes. And Nikolai Varoni then starting third. Matt Campbell is fourth on the grid. 22 cars then for the continuation of the race. But the timing is zeroed. So in real world racing, if you were, in the case of Mirko Bortolotti, 3 laps down, you'd stay 3 laps down. But here we're going from 0 again in terms of laps done.
I like that. It gives them another chance. I know that this is serious and it's for points, but obviously there was an accident there. It was midway through the straight as well for Bortolotti, at least. Very much unfortunate accident, and gives him another chance. He was a midfield runner, wasn't he, in Monza, even though the Lamborghini ended up winning the race in the hands of Arthur Rougier.
Yeah, Bortolotti got 9th,
yeah.
So there or thereabouts. Right, this is Beausset as the cars now get themselves ready for the restart of the race. 45 minutes then. Kelvin van der Linde versus Mateo Cairoli. Audi versus Porsche. Now, where was Cairoli on the original grid? He was only 6th, so he's one of the real winners in the first few laps.
And again, we talk about a car that can do 1 lap pace versus a car that can do an hour pace, and that's what the really good supported drivers will have had the feedback from the mechanics. WRT talking a lot to their real-world engineers about getting a great setup for an hour, not necessarily a great setup for 1 lap, but Kelvin van der Linde had a great setup for 1 lap to get himself the pole position, a surprise pole position for him, and quite well ahead of his teammate at WRT, Tomita in 6th position. The next one down, Christopher Mies, down in 11th spot for Audi.
So, into Virage du Pont we come. Then Kelvin van der Linde is on his toes, trying to hang on to that race lead as we are set to go racing once more. So, take 2 for round 2 of the Fanatec Esports GT Pro Series from Paul Ricard. 1 or 2 drivers being a little bit more cautious this time about staying in their grid box. 1 or 2 being very eager to get going as the lights will go green now. It is blast off. Good start by van der Linde. Cairoli tucks in behind him. The front row already clear. Look, as there's a little bit of drama in the pack as Nicholas Nielsen went for a gap that soon disappeared. Van der Linde will hit turn 1 in the lead with Cairoli second. And who's going to be third? It is Varoni up the inside of Campbell. And Campbell gets forced out wide. Nicholas Nielsen around the outside and they touch. The Ferrari spins. And others go off in avoidance. Tomita is one of them, and did Campbell get embroiled in all of that? Yet again, drama at the first couple of corners.
Yeah, such a difficult corner, turn 2, and certainly just a little bit of contact that got that Ferrari spinning around. Varone was slow off the line, wasn't he? He did not get moving, and that's what kind of boxed Nielsen in behind him. Now he's got going and into third, and those Ferraris look really strong in the middle part of this lap. Maybe not necessarily as strong through these fiddlier sections, but they don't definitely have the straight line speed on the Mistral.
So as they head up the Mistral straight then for the first time on the restart there, number 33 Nikolai Varoni goes through third, hunting down Cairoli. Cairoli is 2 lengths or so back from van der Linde. 4th at the moment, Philip Ellis. So good part 1, an even better start to part 2. 5th is Dienst, 6th is Fontana, and Ben Barnachod is 12th already, and there's a car off on the Mistral which might well have been Matt Campbell. Looking at the colour scheme, no, it's not Campbell, he's there, but we've lost 1 certainly on the straight, and there's more rubbing going on as Arthur Rougier gets involved with Matt Campbell. Forced out wide, completely sideways arrives one of the Mercedes in the background. crikey, it's all kicking off, isn't it? And we're only on the first lap of the restart.
I think that was Thomas Rougier at the back shot, but in the middle of the straight again, I don't know why these guys are having trouble getting down a straight line without contact. We've seen it in both of our starts. So Rougier continues, not reset into the pits, but Tomita down in 21st position, so he's also had a bit of an issue.
So there's number 22, Matt Campbell. I was getting excited about Barnachod's progress, but Ben, I think, has been put into a different place in the order now, so he's fallen back again. But at the end of the lap, Van der Linde leads the way, and it's half a second between Cairoli in second place, and then Nikolai Varoni is in third. Philip Ellis runs fourth. Marvin Dienst is fifth. Alex Fontana is sixth. Seventh is Arthur Rougier. Eighth is Matt Campbell. There he is, then delayed at turn one a lap ago. In ninth spot is Ezequiel Perez Companc. 10th is Kiko Galbiati. And what can Matt Campbell now do about the Lamborghini ahead of him? He pulls to the inside, does he? He thinks about it, little touch of the tail maybe. Campbell prizes open the door, goes for it. There's a gap on the inside, just about, but that puts him on the wrong line. Going down out of turn 2 into 3. Rougier back on the inside line. Remember, that Lamborghini is laden up with 30 kilos of success ballast, so Matt Campbell here, heading up towards L'École, should be able to go through, and he does go through. As into the pits has come Thomas Rougier.
Yeah, so the setup that was working on that Lamborghini last time out in Monza, with that extra 30 kilos, not quite working as efficiently for Rougier. As we see Danny Juncadella, who started at the tail of the field. That's been an incredibly good start from the Spaniard, up to 12th position after 1.5 laps, and already picking up another big slipstream from Mettler as Ferrari goes spinning.
That was Nielsen, wasn't it? Number 51, Nicholas Nielsen, possibly with an assist. More Mercedes squabbling going on here. Look, as you've got Yannick Mettler on the inside line, and up with him is Danny Juncadella. So this is for 11th and 12th places. With them 13th is Mirko Bortolotti, 66 is Christopher Mies, who is also trying to make progress forward and has just sorted out Gabriele Piana. So 14th now for Christopher Mies. Briefly a yellow flag out on track. That is withdrawn as the leader, Calvin van der Linde, despite what's being thrown at him, continues to lead the way.
Great progress from Juncadella and Bortolotti, 12th and 13th, but Barnachod has not been able to mirror that. He's 4 seconds off his nearest challenger, which is Max Hoffer in 19th position, and really just not making progress forward in the McLaren.
Yeah, and I'm surprised about that, given how well he was in qualifying and how well he went early on in the race. So there is van der Linde, and the gap is a second and a half as Juncadella comes up now to have another go at Yannick Mettler as they head over the line down towards turn 1. You've got Mirko Bortolotti getting closer in the Lamborghini. Juncadella to the inside line. Job done, place gained, 11th.
Easy done from the McLaren, the Mercedes there. Past yet another Mercedes and putting a Mercedes between himself and Bortolotti, who seems to just be towing along and learning from Juncadella, who is effectively a Mercedes esports work driver, although Mercedes don't really have an esports program like we see from Ferrari or BMW, but certainly one of the chosen drivers. If Mercedes ever do something in esports, he's the one that gets called upon, and he's got great experience across all platforms.
So as the drivers then blast their way along the Mistral, Mateo Cairoli, if anything, he's being caught, is he not, by the Ferrari of Nico Varoni behind. He's getting a tow. Is he going to be able to make a move at senior? You've got to be really brave to do it, especially on the outside line, but he's got the job done even before the corner. Really good cutting through the air there was the Ferrari. Varoni runs it wide over the curb, gets back onto the circuit, claims the line for the corner. Philip Ellis is fourth, and he's also chipping away at that deficit and gaining on the Porsche, with Cairoli good on the brakes, catching back up to Varoni.
Yeah, I think that Porsche is set up for the fiddly stuff and lap time, whereas the guys at FDA have worked out that if they've got a good straight line speed in that Ferrari, they can overtake people and then just be in front for the rest of the lap. Just got to be a little bit careful going into turn 1, because they won't reach maximum velocity across the start finishing straight. That'll be the one place that maybe Cairoli can fight back. Looks down the inside, there isn't any space there. This will be the place, if he's got a good run of things, where he might be able to get past, but the Ferrari seems to have the legs. It does, over the straight. Look how the Porsche at this point starts to close in with the slipstream. Will he be able to dive down the inside into turn 1?
He might just run out of straight. He's going to be late on the brakes. Cairoli finds the gap, dives through, and there, possibly being quite savvy about it, was Nikolai Varoni, because he knew the car had the pace. He gave him racing room, confident that with 38 minutes and change on the clock, he might be able to fight back. That said, he suddenly has to go defensive, because Philip Ellis is up on the outside line as they went out of shots, but he couldn't get away through. So it remains Audi, Porsche, Ferrari, Mercedes, first, second, third and fourth.
you don't feel much of an effect from the slipstream unless you've got a car that really glides through the air on the Mistral straight, and that Ferrari clearly does. Be interesting to see what Philip Ellis can do about getting onto the tail of them as we look further back. Matt Campbell, another incredibly experienced Porsche Esports driver, as well as his real world, and he is gaining on that Lamborghini. You would thought the Lamborghini would have good straight line speed, but the Porsche in the slipstream very, very close, and he's going to pull out.
Just about dodges out before there was contact made after Rougier with very, very, very pointy elbows sticking them out, saying to Matt Campbell, you're not coming past me, this is all for 7th place. On board in the Porsche, turn through Senior, use the curb on the inside. They both run out wide as late as they dare to get back onto the circuit. Behind, look, you've got the battle going on between Galbiati up ahead of Compact now, and there again Campbell in the Porsche sticks his nose up the inside, but with 30 kilos of extra weight, that Lamborghini is carrying it pretty well.
Yeah, but it's going to be really hurting the tyres through the fiddlier stuff as the race progresses. It'd be good to get some of those over-the-shoulder shots that we had a little bit earlier on, because you'll be able to see how the tyres are performing from Rougier's car, and we'll be able to get the numbers and see if the 27 points, 1.2, 0.3, that's the kind of tyre pressure minimum changes that we see in this game. You don't necessarily see that in the real world. You'll see kind of 1 PSI, 2 PSI change, but not 0.1. The game is so sensitive, and if you're just 2 or 3 points out, then the car starts really overheating and not working. Porsche, better through the fiddly stuff, but doesn't have the legs on the straight to get past at the moment.
And in other news, Ben Barnachod is up into 18th, still trying to chip his way through the order. David Pittard is up into 15th, Bortolotti 12th, Juncadella 11th, and that's Cairoli fending off Veroni again. They traded places, but the Porsche goes back ahead, back up into 2nd spot. But Philip Ellis is the one that's looking really promising out of all of this, because all it's going to take is one little error from either of those two ahead, or a little tangle between them, and he's there.
Well, big gap at the moment between the Porsche and the Ferrari. Let's see how much it closes in as we get to the end of the straight. The timing on the left-hand side will give you a little bit of a cue. I don't think the Mercedes is going to have the legs to be able to slipstream past, though, but look at the difference in pace. It's absolutely massive. The Ferrari goes flying past, and the Mercedes to the inside as well.
Ellis tries to get a double toe. The Ferrari so slippery on the air, and contact. The Porsche gets sideways. Round goes Ellis. Mateo Cairoli held on to that slide, and he's hanging on to the place as he's lost one spot, but that could have been a whole lot worse. So Nico Veroni goes 2nd. It's Marvin Dean stuck to 3rd. Cairoli 4th. That was the save of the day, wasn't it, from Mateo Cairoli. And Philip Ellis, who had been looking really promising, I'm afraid, gets into the side of the Porsche, and he's badly delayed as a consequence of that. But wow, what a save from Cairoli.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit optimistic from Ellis to go up the inside when clearly Cairoli's attention was to the Ferrari and not necessarily to the Mercedes, who would have had a much tighter line to describe. And we are seeing the first of the pit stops. So the window is...
No, I think this is Ellis with a problem.
So he's reset.
Damaged, but Bortolotti as well shown as being back into the pits.
Yeah, he's on his phone. It's game over.
Oh. Ordering lunch.
Yeah.
Right, so Marco Bortolotti for the moment is done. We'll see him making a big impact, I'm sure, in the real world race at Paul Ricard later on. So what that gives us is the order thus. Van der Linde leading, was ever the way. Veroni is 2nd. Marvin Dean stuck to 3rd. Cairoli is down to 4th. Fontana is 5th. Campbell up to 6th ahead of Rougier 7th. Juncadella 8th. Galbiati 9th. And Companc is 10th. With Veroni, you're leading Silver, and Van der Linde, you're leading Pro.
Van der Linde's done a beautiful job here. He's kept himself at the front of the field. He's made a gap, keeping himself out of all the trouble. There's always so much frenetic action in these esports races that if you are in the pack, you really run a high risk of getting caught up in something. And what are we seeing here then? Over the shoulder, and this is Mateo Cairoli and his view from inside as well as outside the car, I think. Is that a Lamborghini, isn't it? That's a Porsche.
Porsche, yeah, Porsche gloves. So Cairoli inching up onto the back of the traffic ahead as they come now up towards Senior, and you see that when you do get the toe, you are able to gain. So into the corner, closing on that Mercedes ahead. It is Marvin Dienst, the former German F4 champion, ahead of him. Good scrap going on here. Kiko Galbiati and Ezequiel Perez Compact to be 4th in Silver. Lamborghini versus Mercedes.
And Compact was 2nd last time out, so he'll be looking to try and get some more points for his team in the Silver Cup. Although at the moment it's going to Veroni and the Ferrari. Now that Ferrari was driven by Benji Heites in our first round, so he picked up 3rd position. and picked up 1 point for the team, so they're going to get another couple of points if things stay as they are. Benji was wanting to do this race, but has picked up an injury, and therefore it's a late change, but it's definitely a good change for the Ferrari team right now for Rinaldi.
Yeah, and Veroni's going to be interesting to watch in the real world race, isn't he, to see whether he can duplicate the pace. He was pretty nifty in qualifying this morning. Van der Linde goes through then, 4.6 seconds up the road. He's obviously hungry, he's not hanging about, wants his lunch. And Kelvin van der Linde clear of Nico Veroni second. Dienst, Cairoli, Fontana, Campbell rounding out the top 6. So at the moment that's points 3 for WRT, 2 for Rinaldi and 1 going the way of Topsport.
Slowly but surely those Lamborghinis are creeping up the order. They didn't qualify particularly well with Fontana, Rougier and Galbiati, the 3 5th, 7th and 8th, but now 3 inside the top 10. And as Danny Ucadella had an issue, presumably so, because the window is not yet open to pit and he has reset. So that's a big shame for the man who was on joint pole position in Monza, had a good run of things to second, but it's not gone his way. He'll shed that weight for our next round, which is actually a long way away. It's Spa, isn't it, the next one?
It will be, yeah, that's right. Then we go to the Nürburgring and to our Spanish conclusion. Now, Ben Barnachod here is on the back of Nicholas Nielsen. They both had their delays, so 12th and 13th they are. And Nicholas Nielsen on the back of Gabriele Piano, coming back to the Hatch Racing team. GT3, GT4 expert and very good in GT4 machinery, as Nielsen is about to lose out, I fear. Ben Barnachod makes his move and goes through, but Ben then gets a little bit stuck. Does he? No, he gets the toe, he gets the line, he goes around the outside of the Mercedes. It's going to be 2 places gained. No, it's not, it's contact, and off the road goes the McLaren, off the road and sideways goes the Mercedes. Gabriele Piano managed to hang on to the slide just about. Nielsen suddenly gains. Christopher Mies has a big moment in avoidance. And out of all of that, who survives? Nicholas Nielsen survives, but he had his travails earlier on. Mateo Cairoli's life is a bit more sanguine in 4th place at the moment on the back of Marvin Deans. Poor old Ben Barnachod can't cut the luck at all, can he?
Now the drivers will all see a radar to show them that there's a car alongside them, and yes, okay, you can't actually see it in the screens that you've got because of the perception. Perhaps the driver is closer, the field of view is closer to the to what you see in the real world, so you're zoomed in effectively and looking at the dashboard, which doesn't give you very much field of view to the left and the right. Other drivers like to sit back, but you do have a radar, and that radar will show you if you've got a car alongside. So we've seen a couple of incidents at Senior, and there isn't really, there's the excuse in the real world that you can't see the guy on the far inside, but in the virtual world there is that radar.
I'm sorry, I didn't see them. Yes, so the problem is happening always, it seems, at that corner, but it's a byproduct of the fact that you're arriving there so quickly, and it's a golden opportunity with all of that speed to commit to the move. So there, Cairoli goes through, he's 4th, chasing after Dienst. Kelvin van der Linde 4.7 seconds to the good, so it really has been his day, hasn't it, because he dominated qualifying, he dominated part 1, and there he's looking so good in the lead of the race, with Marvin Dienst chipping away to get onto terms with Veroni 2nd and 3rd. Now that, way back in 13th, is Ryoichi Tomita, 30 kilos of weight in that Audi, but of course he got delayed in the early part of the race prior to the stoppage.
Yeah, and it's not always graphically represented, the damage that these guys pick up, so we might not be able to see it, but he might have some kind of steering issue or aerodynamic damage to the car, and that is slowing his pace up. And certainly we didn't see the accident, but he dropped to the tail of the field, and maybe our Japanese driver is bringing home that car with a little bit of damage. And actually the Silver Cup is well contested this round here in Paul Ricard, and therefore it'll be difficult for him even to pick up scraps in terms of points, as we've got side by side ahead and Cairoli in the mix again.
That's for 3rd place, isn't it? Dienst then, Marvin Dienst in the Mercedes, Mateo Cairoli right behind him in the Porsche. Now, a toe is exactly what Cairoli needs, but he's committed to the inside line for turn 1 early, hasn't he? He's already out of the draft, lines up to make his move into the braking zone now. Does the Porsche go through? Yes, it does. Mateo Cairoli through on the inside line into the top 3 again.
Well, that means that Porsche's not with too much damage then, and he's able to run pretty well, even though he's already had contact and a half spin, and that spin would have really overheated the tyres. Running sideways like that for a long period of time, the temperatures would have skyrocketed and he wouldn't have got the grip out of his tyres for the next couple of laps until they calmed down again, and he would have had to drive quite carefully, quite calmly, not to overheat those tyres further. But now it does look as though the car's back into proper trim and he's back into the podium positions.
What's going to be interesting is whether he can get away from Dienst and do anything about Varoni up the road, or whether the Mercedes is going to be able to claw itself back into the mix, because this is the one part of the circuit where the slipstream will go against Cairoli. Alex Fontana is there, look, as well, in 5th place, gobbling up the gap between him and the Mercedes. He goes to the outside line. We look at this fight between Galbiati and Compact. As the Lamborghini fends off the Mercedes, Compact goes to the outside line there up towards Senior. Whether he can go all the way around the outside is going to be debatable, but he's going to try. In the real world, Compact had a big accident there a couple of 3 years ago and slots back in behind Kiko Galbiati as they go through the right-hander. But meantime, Kelvin van der Linde is still clear in the lead of the race. Varoni second, and actually getting away from Cairoli because Matteo is busy defending from Dienst and Fontana. And equally, Galbiati 8th is a very busy man indeed, keeping Compact at bay.
For those of you watching Senior and seeing the cars bouncing over the curbs there, the game takes care of track limits. So if it believes that you have benefited more than 1/10 of a second by running off track, then it will give you a warning and a couple of warnings, and eventually you'll get a automatic drive-through penalty from the platform. So that's one less thing for our race control to have to worry about. There's been plenty of things to analyse and accidents to have a look at. At the moment, we haven't had any penalties, but I know that they are looking at various things already.
Now the pit window is open, so the 10 minutes that you have for the pit stops between these 25 and 35 minutes of the race, they're now open, and you can come in and take on this 1 litre of fuel. You don't have to change tyres, so it's a pit stop that needn't take long. But what's going to be interesting is who wins, who loses on these pit stops now.
Yeah, and Kelvin van der Linde will pit, and he needs to make sure he comes back out onto circuit in the clear air that he has right now, because he could easily lose that advantage by falling behind a slower car. Now, I'm sure, as he mentioned to us, he's got WRT on his Discord channel, effectively on his radio. They will have internal feed of the game. They'll be able to have a look at the track map. You've got a track map in our right-hand corner to show the cars, and they can kind of calculate where, if he pits, where will he come out and will there be traffic ahead of them as Fontana moves himself up into 4th position. That Porsche's just not slippery at all. I don't think it's actually everyone else is faster, it's just the Porsche's slower.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the cars around it, I hesitate to use the word boxy, but it's just a different shape, isn't it? And the Ferrari we saw was very slippery earlier on, the Lamborghini likewise. Even the Mercedes, with all of that grunt, is a good car to have in a straight line. So Mateo Cairoli's yo-yo race, back up into 3rd, now back down to 5th. It continues, and Matt Campbell behind him in 6th place, also doing his best to fight forward. But it's a tough one. We've lost Ben Barnachod, by the way. Christopher Mies is the first of the drivers that has served the pit stop, mandatory stop, and another one making progress. And I tell you, David Pittard was in the top 10. Well, he is, and he's closing on that battle ahead of him between Galbiati and Compact.
Once again, as we've seen, the Porsche is better through the fiddly stuff, and Cairoli down the main straight gets relatively close to the Lamborghini. Probably not close enough to get down the inside, but it's just top speed that Porsche's missing out on, as Cairoli's got a drive-through penalty. Is that for an accident? Probably at Senior.
So it was contact out on track. Cairoli then, it must be the Philip Ellis incident, he's given a drive-through penalty by the stewards, one of whom is Steve Burns, the Real World GT4 race director this weekend, so dovetailing real and virtual duties, and it's a real penalty, that's for sure. So Cairoli, there he is, up the curb, we'll get the message, we'll get the drive-through, and he'll have to serve that. And
that's a really interesting decision, because I think the majority of the time in the real world, you know that the driver on the far inside would not necessarily be able to see the other car, and you might apportion blame to the car doing the overtaking on the inside rather than the car taking the racing line on the outside. In the virtual world, you know they can see you. They've got that radar. If they haven't got it on their screen, they should do, and therefore perhaps the blame switches a different direction.
Well, there is a situation with Audis 1 and 2 on the road, but 1 is a lap down because Christopher Mies in the second of the Audis has pitted, so that costs him time. He'd already been in the wars anyway early on in the race, but Kelvin van der Linde, 24 minutes on the clock, ticking off the laps now as he comes through, looking oh so strong up front.
Yeah, able to really drive within himself. At the first round, he was a bit surprised about the competitiveness of the grid that we had, and a man that, if you look down at the list of achievements, he's a real-world professional sim driver. He drives to red line in professional sim races, so represents Audi here as a professional race driver in the real world, but also professionally in the sim world as well, but did not feature very highly in our first race in Monza has gone back and really got himself engrossed in Assetto Corsa Competizione, which, like changing different cars and different brands, requires a different technique to the different platforms that he's used to, and much the same as Matt Campbell, who's now come into the pits as well to serve his mandatory pit stop. They are now getting used to how this particular platform drives, and really working for Van der Linde. Clear as day at the front of the field, and now it's the turn of WRT to find that gap for him and make sure they can come away from here with a couple of pro points. And remember, it's the team that scores the points, and it goes towards their real world championship at the end of the year.
So there is Rougier Tomita then. He's gained a place at the expense of Gabriele Piani now, so that brings him up to 12th place overall. 11 laps are done. The leading gap keeps going up and up and up, doesn't it? Nearly 6 seconds now between Van der Linde and Varone. Now that's Matt Campbell. He's done a stop, so he's back on track, falls down the order as a consequence, but of course he'll gain some of that back when other drivers ahead make their pit stops in the next few laps.
Yeah, car behind, Galbiati, who also pitted at the same time, but good space by the looks of the radar on the right-hand side in front of him, so he can get his head down, and as long as he's not too distracted, that's not Galbiati, that's a Mercedes, so it's Danny Jucadella who hasn't pitted. And actually, Jucadella might be faster than the Porsche, especially down the Mistral straight, so this could be a little bit tricky for Matt Campbell to deal with the pace of the Spaniard, even though actually they're not racing each other, because Jucadella hasn't made his compulsory pit stop yet.
Interesting though, isn't it, that Porsche that was ahead anyway, struggling for pace, and again on the Mistral straight, it's almost like they throw out the anchor, whether it's the Campbell car or the Cairoli car. The Porsches just do not look as fleet as others, and up the inside easily for Juncadella. The Mercedes now tries to make the move. He should be able to go through on the inside line up towards Senior, and does go through. Now Campbell will get the place back again in the fullness of time once Juncadella stops, but for now the Mercedes goes ahead on track.
Alex Fontana, fourth position, goes into the pits to serve his mandatory pit stop. Cairoli doing the same, but he will not actually tick that box into the green because he's got the drive-through penalty. So that will be the one that is served first, and then his actual pit stop will be served at a later date. Also, Pittard into the pits, only 3.5 minutes left of the pit window, so with a track that is just around 2 minutes long, you don't have that many options to get into the pits.
Oh, it's a very narrow window indeed, isn't it? The 10 minutes that they've got. Nicholas Nielsen is in as well, and others we've lost quite a few of. In fact, we've got 18 still in the race now. We've lost Barnachod, Drouet, Ellis, Bortolotti, Abril, Sheargaard. Over the line goes Matt Campbell. So right now he's 13th in the classification. We've still not had the top 2, top 3, top 4 into the pit lane, as down towards turn 1 goes the midfield scrap. Number 40 Mercedes there, Yannick Mettler, 16th. He has pitted.
Now what Lamborghini was coming out just in front there of Matt Campbell, I think that might have been Fontana, just ahead of Matt Campbell. So Fontana's up into points. Yeah, Mettler's car's looking very second-hand. You don't see damage very often in ACC, so that's a big damage.
Yeah, but equally, what's slightly quirky about this is that was a car that did have front damage in qualifying this morning. Jordan Love put the car up against something and did a bit of damage on the front, so it's happening in the virtual world as much as the real. Over the line, we've got 20 minutes of the race to go, and of course, all of this within the way that the platform is operating, taking you past 9:30 in the evening, so in real terms temperatures are dropping, and that might be helping the pace of the cars.
Yeah, the track temperature at the start of the race was 18 degrees. We've only lost a single digit on track temperature and air temperature, but it will have an effect. These tiny differences have a major effect in ACC, and I think by the end of the encounter we'll lose another degree. Wait to see how dark it really gets at the end of the race. We haven't had that twilight though. Normally the race director, the TV director, likes to show the oranginess of the racetrack, but I think we had too much cloud today, so no big orange moon. As Matt Campbell is now behind. It is Fontana, isn't it? And so he's dropped behind, even though I thought he was coming out ahead of him after those pit stops.
But this is a battle for position, isn't it now? Because for 10th and 11th, Fontana ahead of Campbell, and the Lamborghini was looking good early on. Right, second, third, fourth in Varone, Dienst, Rougier, but Kelvin van der Linde staying out. He's got one lap, basically. He's got to come in at the end of the next one, saying he's on Discord to the team. there, just getting past Rougier as they hurtle down the straight go. This battle between Fontana and Campbell, and Matt Campbell now is absolutely committed to this as he tries to find the line past the Lamborghini that twitches, goes out wide, pressure tells, Campbell goes through.
May have been a bit of contact, maybe just a little touch, kind of touring car styley. I'm here. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt your racing line. But Matt Campbell goes through anyway, and he was very, very lucky not to plummet into the side of Arthur Rougier as Rougier came out the pits there, because he was tucked up behind one Lamborghini, pulled out the slipstream, and there was another one going slowly in front of him.
Contact and touring cars, I don't quite understand what you mean, Ben. Right, Nico Veroni has pitted, he is third. All of this puts Piana up into second. He's a late stopper. Another late stopper is Danny Junqueira. So the order after the pit stops will be really interesting, because the danger is you are released into a battle and that affects your own pace. But they're going to have to come in at the end of this lap. There is the leader down the pit lane then. So turn through the chicane at pit in. Kelvin van der Linde comes into the pit road, riding with him as he looks for his team now.
Yeah, so look at the work that the driver has to do, even for a small pit stop. He's got his finger on the button. All on the left-hand side of the screen there is the options that he can do to change in the pits. It's quite a long stop, actually. It wasn't 2.5 seconds, but he didn't have to do too much work. Got back on to the pit limiter and now just turns to his team. Is everything fine? Yes, it is. Needs to check his mirrors as he comes out the pits to make sure there's no traffic. But I think there's a nice big gap, and this is the next car, and this next car is nowhere to be seen. So Kelvin van der Linde has allowed everybody else to do their pit stops, which has given him that track space to come out with no danger of getting caught up in back markers.
So he's back on track, and the man that's doing the chasing is Nikolai Veroni now in second spot, but the margin was 28 seconds at the timing line. It's going to be much less than that, of course, because of the stop. There is Veroni. Behind him in third place is Cairoli, who's got back up there, but has still to serve the mandatory stop. That previous visit to the pit lane has been credited with the drive-through, but he has to make the regulation stop, as Ben explained. Then it's Junqueira fourth.
Yeah, and the time is ticked to 0, so I don't know whether he's got the ability to do so.
And nor has Junqueira.
Yeah, so those two will be disqualified out of the race, I believe, which will be a big shame. Okay, they were probably not on course for the top 3 and therefore not on course for points, but the game will boot them out after 3 laps, and so they won't even be able to finish.
Yes, in the real world, you would be given a time penalty to add on to that for not serving your pit stop, but we'll see what the race officials elect to do. Cairoli's is a difficult one, because if he was unaware of the drive-through, he will think he's made his pit stop. Junqueira is slightly different. I have to confess, I had it in my mind that he had pitted, but the platform says no. So that's another one that might be up for discussion. Marvin Dienst runs 5th. There he is in the background in the Mercedes. So he's about to gain a couple of places by not having to do very much.
And Piana was in the pits, but I obviously came into the pits too late and therefore has not been credited with his pit stop because the window had shut by the time he left. So unfortunately he is also one to not complete a mandatory stop, which kind of gives us this battle here. Matt Campbell 2 seconds behind the possibility of a podium spot.
Yeah, it's a shame that the penalties are going to, or the pit stop dramas are going to affect the order a little bit here, because we've had some good drives from the likes of Cairoli and Junqueira from their earlier dramas. Piana likewise, but it shows he's back in the pits again now, but
he's now trying to clear it. He's I need to do it, oh I can't because it's shut.
But he had been in, but too late. Maybe he's back in again and he's still too late. Either way, 15 minutes remain, and van der Linde is 9.5 seconds up the road, so he's absolutely dominated this in a way that perhaps we didn't anticipate, and some of that is because of all the battles going on behind, but he's done exactly the right thing. Just get your head down, drive away from all the problems going on around.
Well, remember early doors we had Veroni, who was very fast on the back straight, but not so fast through the fiddly stuff, holding up Cairoli in the fiddly stuff, and therefore the two of them side by side, lap after lap after lap, doing that exchange, created a 5-second gap even before we had the pit stops. Before then we had the chaos with Cairoli. He dropped back and allowed Veroni to get his head down, but ultimately I don't think that Ferrari's got the pace through the first and last sectors. I think it's just so good down the straight, it's just getting himself in front, but lap pace is, his best lap is 0.2 off Kelvin van der Linde's, but right now it's
on the way back.
Yeah, his last lap was about 7/10 off in real terms, given that there was a pit stop for Van der Linde. And the gap is continuing to grow. It's over 9 seconds. It was around 4.5 before the stops. So even though Van der Linde seemed to make a slow-ish pit stop, it's still not really panned out his way. I'm still slightly curious as to know why Junqueira didn't stop within the window, because again, you think, you've got the big teams running these cars. They're in discussion through Discord with the drivers. The Cairoli one, I think he genuinely believes he's done it, but the drive-through has somehow confused life, whereas Junqueira here on the back of Cairoli, not shown as having done the pit stop. He might have done it, it might be a glitch, or it might be a genuine error on the part of the team, but he's pressing on. He still wants to finish the race, and we're 13 3/4 minutes away from the end. Van der Linde has put 16 laps in the book as he goes through, and it is Nico Varoni in second place, and this battle, third on the road, ultimately might count for nothing.
But in these drivers' minds, it really matters, because it's a point, and it's a point for their team's championship in the real world. So they are going to stay there, and they're going to race as hard as possible. Cairoli at the moment believes he's picked up 1 point for his team, and Junqueira is less than half a second away from that 1 point. So he's going to be pushing hard until somebody tells them that they are unable to actually finish in that position. And here he goes, Danny Junqueira looking to the left, looking to the right, can't find an overlap through this section, but he knows he's got the pace down the Mistral. Easy peasy for him, as now Dents joins the party too.
So Marvin Dean's right up there, and now Junqueira's got this really tough situation. Does he defend or does he attack? Which one is he going to commit to? Ideally, he wants to try and clear the Porsche at the end of the Mistral straight. So now the move for Senior starts, doesn't it? He needed a good run there. Out of Lecaux onto the Mistral. He's got to try and break the slipstream that he's offering up to Marvin Deans, but stay in the slipstream of the Porsche.
And of course, we're talking about an overall race. There is also that silver and pro points. The points are not for overall, they are for pro and silver. So this is actually the battle for second in the Pro Cup, side by side into Ticino.
To the outside goes Junqueira. Can he stay the right side of the white line and get the place? No, there's contact. The Mercedes is ahead as he comes back onto the road. Cairoli muscles his way back through on the inside. There's another clash, and where is Marvin Deans in all of this? Surely he's got past both of them. Yes, he has. Deans goes from 5th to 3rd. Cairoli is still 4th. Junqueira is down in 5th place. Cairoli fights back as we look at Campbell looking for a way by. There's Cairoli. Elbows out, back past Deans, who's off over the curb, back onto the circuit. Crikey, that Porsche is like Rasputin. Whatever you do to it, it will not lie down, will it? Mateo Cairoli gets his place back. You cannot fault him for fighting spirit, can you?
He's so good in this last sector of the lap. He's able to hold a tighter line. He's able to run that car with so much grip and contact further back. Oh no, that's Campbell and Fontana rubbing wheels. And I think that might promote Rougier up 2 spots.
Certainly gets 1. I think Campbell has just about recovered. Hasn't he to hang on to position? Yeah, so he's still 6th over the line. Rougier 7th as they come down towards turn 1. Brake late, flicking to the left. And there number 114 is Rougier ahead of Fontana in 14, the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghinis. So the Monza winner, Arthur Rougier, gains ground. Marvin Deans gained and lost. Cairoli, I mean, the way that he's battling is fantastic, and he is there, 3rd on the road, but shown as not having served his regulation pit stop.
Yeah, so let's not forget then, Pro top 3, Kelvin van der Linde leads that, Cairoli without a stop in 2nd position, Junqueira 3rd without a stop in 3rd position. So I think Campbell and Rougier are battling over the remaining points in Pro, and silver is Varone, Dents, and then the battle between Fontana, basically, because Compact is 7 seconds back. So pretty clear in the Silver Cup where the points are going, less so in the Pro.
Gabriele Piano we've lost from the race, back into the pits, and so with 10 minutes on the clock, cars accelerate on, and van der Linde it is then clear of Nico Varoni in 2nd place. As here, look, Campbell tries again to keep Rougier at bay. 6th and 7th they run, over the curb goes the Porsche, and while Rougier is busy attacking, he's also trying to fend off the challenge coming from his teammate, because Alex Fontana is right there behind him as they swoop now through Beausset. Because all of a sudden Rougier has to go defensive, that suddenly gifts Campbell a couple of lengths. Mateo Cairoli has no such luxury. Deans, Junqueira right there behind him. Porsche, Mercedes, 3rd, 4th, 5th on the road. And Mateo Cairoli is under attack as Deans there closes right up as they come up towards Village, on towards Tour in a moment. And there, Deans up the inside, and there's contact, and around goes the Mercedes. And bang, into the back of him goes Matt Campbell. So that's not going to help the Porsche very much. That's all coming out of Virage Dupont, that slow right-hander. So van der Linde, Varoni, Cairoli, top 3. Junqueira is now 4th. Rougier 5th. 6th across the line is Dienst, 7th is Fontana, 8th is Campbell, 9th is Compank, 10th is Pittard. But it's getting all rather physical out there as they elbow their way from Virage du Pont now onto the start of the next lap. And there's Matt Campbell back up the inside, goes ahead of Alex Fontana, who rattles over the curb. And the Porsche gets a touch, and off goes Campbell this time. Gets fired to the left, and Alex Fontana takes back the place, but that wasn't the subtlest way of doing it, you could argue, because the Porsche certainly made contact with the Lamborghini and got dispatched at high speed off the road.
Just trying to get to the bottom of the rules regarding these 2 pit stops. Juncadella has pitted earlier on in the race before the window opened,
right.
But it might be that there's been a mixture of communication because of the change of length of the race. But Cairoli for sure hasn't taken his second pit stop. Yep. He took his drive-through, probably thinking in his mind that that was good enough to complete. So we can discount Cairoli out of the battle, but Juncadella is a little bit more in the grey area.
Yes, I had it in my mind that we'd seen him pit, but not during the window. So again, he might be thinking, well, I've pitted, so there's no issue. But there is under the regulations. It's funny, isn't it, that you seem in some cases not to be as mindful of the regulations in a virtual race as you do in a real world race, and yet there are proper regulations, there are proper race officials, there's a proper team operating your car, but something doesn't, in some cases, not all clearly, doesn't quite connect at the very end. Now, Nico Veroni has been one of the standouts of this race for me. He is there in second place. Okay, he's not going to threaten Van der Linde for the win, but he's going to win his class.
Yeah, he is, and so the Silver Cup will go to, is that 3 different drivers from what we saw in the first round, I think? A little bit more consistency in the Pro Cup now that Danny Juncadella and Arthur Rougier are in the top 3, and they were in the top 3 last time out. So we are seeing it'll be a decent haul of points once we get to the end of the season if the same 3 guys are able to dominate each round. As down the inside, Marvin Dietz a little bit later on the brakes and gets that move done and ahead of Arthur Rougier up into 5th position, but ultimately it doesn't count for anything points-wise because they are different classes.
So Rougier is in the Pro contest, and silver is Marvin Dienst, keeping Fontana and Compank at bay. Marvin Dienst could argue that he's been a bit hard done by over the last few laps with the contact, but the Top Sport WRT Mercedes then for the moment, keeping Arthur Rougier at bay, who's just chipped along with this race, hasn't he? And bit by bit crept back into contention, crept up the order. So 7 minutes are on the clock. Kelvin van der Linde doing a very good job indeed up the road. Audi and Ferrari as the winning brands across the 2 classes if things stay as they are. Cairoli's Porsche set for 3rd on the road, and Kelvin van der Linde doing not only the fastest lap of the race, but on his last one he was only about half a second off his earlier best. So just saying to people, this is my race. Another place change there, look, because you've seen it happen. The Lamborghini going ahead of the Mercedes.
The other thing about Kelvin van der Linde's last lap is about half a second faster than anybody else on track. He's got a huge gap of over 10 seconds, and he's still pushing hard as the Mercedes of Marvin Dent's back up the inside of the Lamborghini, or is that Fontana behind trying to get past? I
think that's Dienst back ahead of Rougier. Fontana is next in the queue, so they are trading places all the while here, and with 6 minutes to go, Marvin Dienst, having got back ahead, wants to try to escape, but again you're seeing that the Mercedes is strong in certain areas and the Lamborghini in others.
That long Mistral straight really is providing us with really great action in the virtual world, and I'm sure will be the same this afternoon in our 6-hour race, our 1,000 Ks here at Paul Ricard in the real world. A little bit longer to deal with, but actually the darkness that we are experiencing in the virtual, not that dark. We haven't quite got to nightfall yet. It's taking itself a long time here on the platform this evening. There is a view of Kelvin van der Linde,
who has just dominated all of this, hasn't he? Qualifying, race, and part 2 of the race, doesn't matter which. He has been the standout driver, and there he is, absolutely out on his own as the Skechers Audi is very sure-footed as it comes onto the Mistral straights. It is Nico Veroni in 2nd place, but 11.5 seconds. Now, okay, you could offer some of that by Veroni settling for a class win, but even so, that's a big, big gap between the 2, especially bearing in mind that they were all bunched up again for that restart.
Yeah, absolutely, and there was that pressure having built up a gap that then disappeared. He needed to pull it out again, and Kelvin van der Linde, I suppose in the same way that you would have a safety car period destroy your advantage in the real world race, kind of had to deal with the same thing here. Now, here is a battle between our two non-pitters. Danny Ucadella down the inside has found a space. Can he make that move stick? Yes, he can. He goes past and into third position of Cairoli, and there's still a bit of kissing because Cairoli fights back on the inside, and that Porsche is better through this part of the track. He can turn in and hold a tighter line, and he gets back through again.
Mateo Cairoli is the ultimate scrapper, isn't he? It doesn't matter what you do, he's going to hang on to that place. Junqueira tries another line, another bit of curb, and where can he put the Mercedes to try to outfox Cairoli? The answer at the moment is absolutely nowhere. Everything he tries, the Italian has got an answer to. 4 more minutes of the race to go, which is just about 2 more laps. Down towards the Virage du Pont they come. Matt Campbell's been given a drive through. So is Gabriele Piana, but we've not seen him for 6 laps. That's kind of academic. But as van der Linde goes by, second is Varoni, and third, Cairoli versus Junqueira. This is going to go down to the wire, and it's been one of the best battles of the race.
Oh, shame for Matt Campbell to get a penalty because he was really up there with those 2 Lamborghinis, fighting for with these 2 Lamborghinis early doors. Rougier now has Fontana behind him. They're different classes. But they will be trying to get back onto the tail of Marvin Dienst and get themselves into 5th position, at least for Fontana, because that would be an extra point in the Silver Cup for Fontana. Rougier, I think, is 3rd position in the Pro Cup. I believe that Cairoli will be disqualified at the end of the race from that 3rd spot, but don't do it at the moment because it's great fun to watch him scrap, even if it's for nothing.
David Pittard gaining a place. He's up to 9th, chasing after Compank. And Kelvin van der Linde is now 12 and a half, give or take, seconds to the good ahead of Varoni. Now, what's going on here? 1-1-4. Arthur Rougier still chasing after Marvin Dienst. I'll tell you what, if you think about this in terms of the fact that it's as long as a normal round of GT World Challenge Europe Sprint Series, but that's for 2 drivers, a lot happens for 1 driver in a race like this because we've had constant incident, lots of place changing, and the pit stop. And of course they don't normally drive for this long in the sprint series. To the outside line goes Rougier, job done, cuts through the air nicely on the Mistral straight, and Arthur Rougier then goes through into 5th place at the expense of Marvin Dienst going up towards Senior. And look what's up the road, Cairoli versus Junqueira, the 2 of them almost overlap, as this time to the inside goes the Mercedes, bang! Junqueira classes his way up the inside, gets his nose in front. Cairoli is off the road. Is he going to dive bomb at the next corner? He might think about it, yes he does, tags the back of the Mercedes, and off goes Junqueira.
Oh, that is a shame, because that was really entertaining stuff, and that's just a bit too naughty from Cairoli there. And Danny Ucadella, I think, will be resetting out of the race. He's certainly not got moving again. Cairoli has, but if it wasn't another drive-through, wasn't a pit stop he hasn't done, he'll need to do probably another drive-through. But we've only got 1 minute and 50 seconds left, so...
Yes, there could be 1 or 2 stories rumbling on at the end of all of this, couldn't they? Right, so van der Linde has gone by, and he might just squeeze 1 more lap out of this at the end. There's Cairoli going through now, still 3rd on the road. I mean, I've said it already, whatever you do, you can't stop him. He still fights, still attacks, doesn't he? Campbell has not yet served that drive-through, I don't think, down in 10th place, as Rougier runs 4th, and that's going to be net 3rd, so again, points for Emil Frey.
Arthur Rougier, 4th position, but Dent just behind Dient, and that is for 2nd in the silver class.
So there, with 1 minute on the clock, you have the fight going on. 1-1-4, remember, is Arthur Rougier, and right there behind him as the cars accelerate through is the hard-charging Marvin Dienst, as the field then now comes towards Senior as the light fades. The cars fight on up towards the right-hander, and as they do so, van der Linde, it is clear up front then. There he is, that's the race leader. He will get 1 more lap out of this race as he comes then now up towards the approach to Virage du Pont, and for Kelvin van der Linde, 12.7 seconds clear. He is in what has been a very impressive race indeed for the WRT run Audi driver. The South African then is on target for a win. Nico Varoni is on target for a class win as well in that 2nd place, as with 1 more lap to go, 20 seconds remain on the clock. He'll squeeze 1 more lap out of the race. Kelvin van der Linde then goes over the timing line, and as he goes down towards turn 1, clock ticks on down. He's on his last lap of the race now. Cairoli then is up towards the line in that third spot. Nico Varrone runs second, but van der Linde then for the last time down towards turn 3. He has absolutely stamped his mark on this race and has driven brilliantly. A win beckons for him in round 2 of this Fanatec Esports GT Pro Series.
Just a couple more corners to go. It will be a win for Nikolai Varrone in the Silver Cup, although quite a way behind overall.
A Ferrari very, very strong down the Mistral straight, but not particularly strong elsewhere. 13 seconds will be the gap by the end. And drive-through penalty for Mateo Cairoli for that last contact, so he will certainly drop out of pro contention. Rougier in second. And Ricard now going to get third position for Silver Cup. No, I think Daniel Cadella will just hold on depending on what they decide with pit stops. Round scene for the final time. Here comes Kelvin van der Linde then, round the last couple of corners. It's been a faultless drive from the South African, getting himself on the pole position, getting himself in the lead in the first part of our race, having it all taken away from him. And now just 2 more corners to go. Here comes Kelvin van der Linde for WRT. They took a silver victory last time out, and they'll take a pro victory here in Paul Ricard. Yes, he punches the air. Great work from Kelvin van der Linde, and that's how much it means to him. Serious amount of emotion coming out of the South African, and now we wait for the Ferrari, and Varrone takes second position overall, first in the Silver Cup. Yes, well done, Kelvin, good work. It's a pretty spaced out affair. So third position will go to Arthur Rougier, our winner last time out. That will end up, no, Arthur Rougier's made a mistake somewhere and he's falling down the order. What has happened to Arthur Rougier? He drops out, I think, of our top 3. And a mistake on the last lap for Rougier. So Kelvin van der Linde, Danny Ukundela and Arthur Rougier drops to third position in the Pro Cup. In the silver, Varrone, Denst and Fontana. But plenty of stories to tell across our races and plenty of applause out in the stadium as well. Kelvin van der Linde out of his sim and takes the victory.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for sticking around. And what another fantastic encounter we've had here at Paul Ricard. Absolutely spellbinding sim racing. And we will quickly do a presentation for our top 3. So top 3 in the silver and top 3 in the pro category. Make sure you stick around and we will soon get you some of our Fanatec fantastic trophies, which really look absolutely amazing. We just have a few technical issues with the final result. So we just need to make sure that they are absolutely bang on before we go racing, before we go into our podium ceremony. And then, of course, drivers, we can release you back to your garages for the real world 1000 Ks here at Paul Ricard. Thank you very much for everyone watching on the stream as well. I hope you stuck with us and enjoyed the racing. Pretty chaotic affair. I know that race control is still working pretty hard to make sure all those various accidents and incidents are sorted out. Mateo Cairoli causing various issues. Let's have a look at Danny Juncadella. Who's he chatting to? Okay, let's get the top 3 from each of the classes ready to go. So we'll start with the Silver Cup and the top 3 of the Silver Cup. If you can make your way down to the front here, so that would be in 3rd position, David Pittard. Where are you, David? Sorry, the Silver Cup. That's the Pro Cup. Let's do the Silver Cup first. So Alex Fontana, Matis Denst, and Nicola Verone. We need you down the front of... Okay, we got 1, 2... 1 second. And then from the pro drivers, we need Pittard, Rougier, and of course our winner, Kelvin van der Linde, who I can see. That's no problem. Okay, right then, let's get this ceremony underway then. For the Silver Cup, first of all, in 3rd position, it's Alex Fontana. Oh, you're a bit sweaty, Alex. And Stefan Rattel will present you with your 3rd position trophy and a check, of course, from Fanatec. It's worth it for the driver's points, for the team's points, it's worth it also for the check and for the trophy. There we go. 3rd position for Alex Fontana for Emil Frey. Congratulations. And in 2nd position, it's Marvin Denst in the Mercedes. Stefan Rattel will present €4,000 and the trophy. And of course, 2 championship points as well for the Silver Cup. It was a great battle in the end, but out front, very much in the lead, Nicola Verone for Ferrari taking the victory. Victory in the Silver Cup, 2nd overall and €6,000 for Nicola Verone. Rinaldi picking up points both in the first and in the 2nd race. Congratulations. Let's get a quick word from Nicola before he runs off. Just grab the microphone, Nicola.
Yeah.
Okay.
You had a mighty car there, especially down the Mistral Straight.
Yeah, I mean, I work all the week on the setup. Yeah, hopefully it paid off. I mean, I went with low downforce, and again, the straight was a weapon, so yeah, really happy with the result.
How hard was it through the fiddlier stuff with other people crawling all over you?
Yeah, okay, the first laps were really tough with Cairoli and all the guys, you know, it was really tough race. But then in the middle race, I managed to make a gap and start to pull away, making a good pace.
Did you want the overall win, or were you happy with making sure you got the points for the Silver Cup?
Well, I mean, at a point I said, okay, I will secure here the result because, I mean, Kelvin was really far away. So, yeah, happy with the result. I'm really happy, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Congratulations again
Thank
to
you.
our Silver Cup winner. And we're going to move on to the Pro Championship. So the top 3, David Pittard, Arthur Rougier and Kelvin van der Linde. Do we have David here? Just hunting around. Our track guide was done by David Pittard, but I don't see him. Maybe is Danny Juncadella taking 3rd? Yeah? Okay. All right, so let's go with the winner first then. We know that one. That was Kelvin van der Linde. Head yourself up here, Kelvin. Congratulations. For Team WRT, an absolutely fantastic victory. Audi Sport doing a great job. And there is a trophy presented by Thomas Jakemeyer. He's going to have a word because he's faster on your rig than he is on his, so there we go. And a €6,000 check for the win. Awesome job. Microphone just grab quickly. Let's have a quick word. Don't drop the trophy, Kelvin. Amazing performance in 2 different races.
Yeah, thank you. We put a lot of effort in. Thanks to the whole team. Thanks to my 2 teammates who, while I was sweating my ass off, they were playing golf. So nice to have you guys here. And yeah, just awesome to end up on the top step. It's nice motivation for the race later on.
Just really, really hard to refocus after that big break.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was spending a bit more time this time. I knew after Monza that the boys were really practicing hard, so I made sure to put a few extra hours back at home, and it obviously paid off, so all good.
Awesome. Congratulations and points for WRT as a team as well. All right. There is our winner. We'll just present the trophies for 2nd and 3rd positions quite quickly. Our winner last time out was Arthur Rougier, and he put 2nd position today. Where's Arthur? There he is. Emil Frey Racing picking up some more points. With 30 kilos of ballast as well. Great effort in the Lamborghini for Arthur Rougier. I should stress that this is provisional, these results. So 2nd overall. Congratulations. And we'll see him back with a little less ballast next time out at Spa. And in 3rd position, at least on my list, is the BMW of David Pittard, who disappeared. Didn't think he actually got himself a podium, but 3rd position for David Pittard. Congratulations. It might be a little bit unknown whether this is the exact result, and I know that Danny Ucadella is here, and I think he might want that trophy a little bit later, David, but for the moment it's yours. Congratulations to BMW, to Lamborghini, to Mercedes, to Ferrari, to Audi, all the different brands picking up some points for their team's championship in the real world. Well, chaos, I think, as is all esports races. Entertainment and chaos here at Paul Ricard. Here in the Fanatec Arena, we take a little bit of a break until the end of July, where we'll be back for the 24 hours of Spa-Francorchamps, and we'll have the next race of our Esports GT Pro Series there as well. But make sure you tune into all the action that's happening here from the real world at Paul Ricard. We've got the 6 hours coming up in a few hours. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and from myself and David Addison in the commentary box, bye-bye for now.
Spray later.